Hey everybody, welcome back to our movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. As you can see, we're not in the new setup. We're in the old school setup where I just sit in the car and talk. Primarily because it is going on like 11 o'clock at night, and this was quite a long film. So just so I have all my thoughts intact, because they're intact right now, I figured just to record the review right now. Hopefully, when I get home and wake up tomorrow morning, I can start editing this together. If not, a raw reaction as we used to, as we discuss Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the latest from Martin Scorsese. Um, Screenplay by Eric Roth, who's done many of Scorsese's work in the past. Stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, as well as Lily Gladstone, who we just talked about recently on the channel with her film The Unknown Country, which I thought she was decent in. Um, this is detailing the early 1900s, specifically within the Osage Nation, an Indian tribe, as they begin to migrate into American culture and to get familiarize themselves with such things, as they say in the film, to become entangled with white people. And Leonardo DiCaprio's character comes under the wing of his uncle, played by Robert De Niro, who is as I say, the king of the Osage Nation and also of the oil estate. Um, he starts to start to work for him in many regards, and falls for a Osage lady played by Lily Gladstone, and tensions start to brood, and racial tensions specifically start to brew and to become more awares and more to the front. And ultimately, the film is about a few things. I mean, it's touching on a few familiar themes that Scorsese likes to play with: greed and tragedy. And more so than anything, though, it's about obedience and about um, uh, uh, selfishness, really. Um, because the film ultimately plays through Leonardo DiCaprio's point of view, where to the audience it's very knowing as to what is happening. We know what De Niro's character ultimately is, and how he is viewing the Osage Nation, and ultimately the kind of person that he really is, which is that of a scumbag and just a monster. But the film decides to take it from the point of view of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who is a very easily manipulated soul. He's very easily swayed. He's like, oh, okay, I guess it's like that. Oh, I guess it's like that. Oh, I guess it's kind of like that. Very simple-minded. At some point, I think someone even called him like a simpleton. It's like, yeah, that's absolutely what his character is. What remains intact, though, and what moves him in the directions that he does, to some measure, or at least like reins him in some regard, is ultimately his love for Lily Gladstone's character, which he says at the beginning of the film is ultimately his weakness. But to some extent, really, it's what keeps him intact mostly. That weakness is ultimately what makes him strong, which I found interesting, kind of a poetic thing. Um, and now the thing about Scorsese is, as of late, um, he's been very pressed on creating his visions in a particular fashion. He's not wanting to hinder to any studios, or wants to do anything of that sort. So that's why he's been dipping with streaming services. Most recently with Netflix, he did with The Irishman. And The Irishman didn't perform well on Netflix, so Netflix was not wanting to grant him all the stuff that they gave him previously, because he didn't deliver. So now he goes over to Apple, and Apple initially wanted to do a streaming release for the film, ultimately because the film was so long, the film being like 3.5 hours. Um, and I guess Scorsese, being Scorsese, pressed for a theatrical run, and eventually it will find its way on Apple TV Plus. Um, and the word that you're looking for to describe Scorsese as of late is self-indulgent, and to some measure that is how you can describe this film, because it is a very fat movie, in that it's a film that needs to lose some weight. There's some scenes in this that I was watching where ultimately I was thinking there's no need for that. And I was actually listening to interviews about this movie prior, and Scorsese was mentioning how he was like, well, I'm not sure if I wanted to cut those scenes because they just seemed more just redundant and just kind of rattling off the same things. And it's like, yeah, you know, because it is a film that is thin by its length. If it were to be something like maybe 2.5 hours, I feel that ultimately it would resonate. But it being 3.5 hours, it whittles these themes down to its thin points, and it doesn't really feel as thick or as meaningful. What carries it is its performances. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm not big on Leonardo DiCaprio, but I thought he was fine in this. I thought he was interesting. De Niro was good. I like Lily Gladstone. I think that what really won me over a lot of times was the score. I thought it was just really, really good. I don't know in particular who did the score, but really, really great score. The writing is always a treat in Scorsese's work. I found the writing here to be quite nice, just particularly in the dialogue. Um, and what's funny about it is that they had written the film prior, and I guess Leonardo DiCaprio came in and he had issues and somehow had authority over the script. Okay, I don't know. They had a different film in mind, but ultimately Leo said, if you want me, change the fucking script, and then they changed the script for him, I guess. So, but whatever. But it is engaging. I mean, you do find yourself. I mean, ultimately within the 3.5 hours, I echo the same sentiment that I gave to The Irishman, except that I think The Irishman ultimately wins out in comparison. It is long, but it is engaging. It is interesting. It is, to some extent, captivating because of the performances, because of the production. I mean, Scorsese, how he utilizes his camera and just his overall craftsmanship is quite nice to look at, and is in some measure being a rarity in cinema, particularly in mainstream culture. Um, and there are points where it definitely hits for me. There's a nice shot with Leo that I'm pretty sure will probably be his Oscar moment, because I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of those films that gets just swept with Oscars because Martin Scorsese's on there. So but the moment where I ultimately found the word for the film, which was self-indulgence, was at the end when Martin Scorsese himself literally ends the movie. He literally shows up at the end of the film with in some stage like thing, which I found was a little bit strange. But he comes at the very end and gives a little blurb saying like this person died, blah blah blah, and then credits. So it didn't become it became it was like loud and clear at that point. Um, but the other issue that the film bears is that, like I said, the film is operating within Leonardo DiCaprio's point of view. The problem with because I brought up the idea the thing about the script being rewritten, and I'm curious to know what the first version of the script was, because I feel like it might have been a little bit more impactful, because the problem with the POV that they chose with Leonardo DiCaprio's character is that you have to be as simple-minded as him to find the real drama, because really the drama is just toxicity and, in some extent, just a stupidity. Because, as I said, it's a film that, like you know absolutely about who De Niro's character is and how he operates. It's not a mystery as to who's killing all these people. You know, um, so and like it has that engagement, but at the same time it also has that redundance where it's like, okay, I get it, yes, it's about this, yes, Leo is doing these things, yes, but it's not enough to where I'm completely, oh shoot, it's not enough where I'm like completely won over by it. It's where um I just feel like I'm halfway there, where I'm just like, because at times I just kind of zoned out, to be quite frank, because again, just how long it plays, um, and that is an issue, because Scorsese has been on record saying like, well, that's not an issue with my movies. I mean, people watch TV shows and that's perfectly fine. I'm like, that's not really an argument, but okay, because television operates on a different, on a different uh, on a different expectation. I mean, television can play for 5 or 6 hours long because they splice up the episodes, not a 5 hour chunk, So that's a different type of viewing. Um, but ultimately, that is the problems of the film, is that I do believe that the narrative choices that they take aren't as enthralling. I think that they can hinder the impact, and um, and make it um, more fine than solid. And you have a craftsmanship that loves to be that loves to be self-indulgent because of how long it plays, and ultimately the redundance uh, in its thematic qualities. Because it's not a film that has anything else new to say after an hour and a half. It's just kind of saying the same things over and over and over again, and you're just kind of sitting there going like, okay, I get it. Leo, why are you doing this? Why are we doing this again? Why are we doing this again? And then eventually that sentence becomes, okay, okay, Martin Scorsese, why are we doing this again? Why I get that Leo's character is supposed to be a very obedient and very stupid kind of character that doesn't create drama. It only creates drama to a certain extent, and not for a 3.5 hour type picture. So so I found it to be fine in terms of what Scorsese does. Like I said, technically speaking, it has a lot going for it, and performance-wise, it has a lot going for it. And just in terms of writing itself, it is interesting. Um, it has some engagement, it has some interest, but it's just some and not fully, because of how Scorsese likes to operate nowadays. He loves himself. He loves himself. He loves what he is doing with his work, and that's ultimately his own worst enemy when it comes to making movies nowadays. It's it. I would not be surprised if his next film was another 3.5 hours, because Marty's all about Marty, and that's ultimately the biggest problem with Scorsese's films nowadays. Like, I like The Irishman, but even I will say The Irishman is a fat movie. This is much fatter than The Irishman, and I have a feeling that it's going to just get more and more obese as time goes on, and that's really, I think, a problem with Scorsese nowadays. So it's fine, but um, but ultimately, it could have been better if trimmed down. Absolutely, if it lost maybe like a good hour or so like that, I think that it might have impacted a little bit more. As it stands, okay, good, good stuff here and there. Um, but I worry that that Scorsese um, is ultimately, is ultimately shooting himself, more than listening to, like, because, like, I just don't see where longer is better. No. Like, I listen to Mark Kermode. He has the best analogy. Length is not a measure of depth. It's not. And Killers of the Flower Moon kind of, in some ways, matches that statement. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon. I thought it was good, but way too long. Just way too long. Um, so you guys, let me know your thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know in the comment section below. If you guys sat through it, just let me know. Um, and yeah, so that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, if I can edit this together, I'll try to. If I can't, going old school with the raw reaction. So yeah, so that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video.